Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the February 2nd, 2 p.m. meeting of the Board of Supervisors for the County of Goochland. And we will start, as we normally do, with an invocation. Yeah, wait for it. An invocation from Pastor David Clark of Calvary Chapel in Goochland. Please stand as able.
I invite you all to pray with me. Father God, I thank you so much for just allowing us this time to do the business of this county. Lord, I pray that you give us wisdom. Be with our supervisors, our leaders, all those that are making decisions today. And Lord, we ask for your help and guidance, your peace and safety as we face this epidemic, as we're facing with all these traffic accidents and emergency services issues. Lord, I just pray that you give us guidance and wisdom to do what we need to do there. But Lord, I pray for safety for us all and keep this meeting in your hands and in your divine sovereignty. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Clark. And we're going to keep moving along. We have not a long agenda, but we do have a closed meeting after this, so I don't have any comments, so we'll move right into the county administrator comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few comments today. We did receive a GFOA award. Goochland County has been awarded the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 2020 budget. The award reflects the commitment of the Board of Supervisors and staff to meeting the highest principles of government accounting and budgeting. To receive the budget award, the county had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well the budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, as an operations guide, and as a communications device. So congratulations to our finance department and staff for all their efforts.
Yes.
I have another.
Absolutely. That is quite the honor.
I also have
Anything
a few other announcements. With the COVID vaccination efforts, I'd like to take a moment to recognize our county employees, the employees of the Chickahominy Health District, and the citizens and volunteers who have been going above and beyond the call of duty to ensure Goochland County's residents are being taken care of. We have deployed more than 40 personnel and resources to support the Chickahominy Health District Regional Call Center from our general government. In addition, we continue to provide resources and support for the vaccination events taking place at the Richmond International Raceway, Randolph-Macon, and the West Creek Emergency Center. Additionally, on the regional front, I'd like to thank our regional government partners, Henrico County, Hanover County, and the City of Richmond for their continuing support and cooperation. Would also like to acknowledge our local nonprofit partner, Goochland Cares, for their efforts. I'd also like to thank the residents of Goochland County for their patience and continued support while we continue to work through the many challenges of the vaccination process. I'd also like to recognize Gary Fisher and extend congratulations to our community development department's Gary Fisher, who serves as Goochland County's highly dedicated building official. Gary is currently serving as the chairman of Region 4 of the Virginia Building and Code Officials Association. This is a great honor and achievement, and I would like to recognize Mr. Fisher's effort and dedication to the protection of health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Goochland County and the Commonwealth of Virginia. Those are my comments for you this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Next on our afternoon agenda is the request to postpone agenda items, additions, deletions, or changes. So I'll invite the board to give me anything, but I do have one thing that I would like the board to consider. is moving, we have 3 public hearings scheduled this evening. If we could move number 3, the countywide ordinance repealing Goochland County Code, Section 9-11, and adopting another couple of sections, or several sections. Would like to move that from third to first place. If, without any objection, we'll do that. Any other requests regarding tonight, or this afternoon, tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chairman, let's see, is this on? Yeah. Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I move that we take the consent agenda item it's number 1 on our agenda, 3873, and defer that for 1 month till our March meeting, regular March meeting.
Okay, all right, so that's a form of a motion to take, jumping ahead a little bit, consent agenda item, go ahead and defer it now. That's, if we can get a second on that.
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sharp. So we'll go ahead and take a vote on that deferral and just the other change that I suggested. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, sounded unanimous. So we have an agenda, and we'll remember that public hearing number 3 is in first place. So we can move right along now into citizen comment period. I'll start in the room, and Mr. Buzzard, I'll look to you to, and plus I'll give a little notice to anybody watching online if they should raise their hand if they want to be heard in a few minutes. But we'll start in the room. If anybody would like to speak to us for 3 minutes, please come up, introduce yourself, and anything of interest that you think the board needs to hear about of interest to citizens of Goochland or Goochland County, please come forward.
Good afternoon, board. Whoops, do I push this?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay, I'm trainable. Jonathan Lau, 1521 Mannequin Road. Mr. Wynn's not here, I don't believe, but I was just going to say thank you to VDOT because we had a little bit of fallen weather here this weekend. And I'll just speak for 621, the road I live on. They got that clean pretty darn quick. And I know that sometimes it's, I don't want to say fun, but common that people will beat up on VDOT, and I just think they did a good job and want to go on record saying that. And the light's not flashing, but I'm sitting down.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle, and we might have a chance to pass that along to them. We do talk to them, but they don't attend the meetings right now. But we do get reports, and we certainly communicate with them. Thank you for that. Anybody else? And Mr. Buzzard, is anybody online that wishes to join us for citizen comment period?
We have no one participating in the Zoom call as of this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We'll close that and go to the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from prior meetings. Let me bring that up on the screen. And board members, we have the December 1st minutes. Trust everybody's had a chance to review them. We need to approve them if someone wants to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the December 1, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lascallette and Mr. Peterson. All in, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have a series of reports. VDOT report is in our packet. Board members, any comments, questions on the VDOT report?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
In reviewing the report, I was very appreciative to see how much of the road litter was being addressed. However, I'm curious as to if we can get an understanding of what time frame that was, because quite frankly, I don't think I've seen our county look much worse than it has the last month or so. And to see that there's that much going on in Whitehall Road, you know, it's great that it's covered in 4 inches of snow right now because it just looks terrible. I know we're working on getting a cleanup day, but we need to do a better job as citizens to keep our roadways clean. So we'd love to understand a little bit more about how that was a very lengthy list of roads that were supposedly completed, which it said January. I'm just not sure what was done.
Thank you. Any other comments, concerns, anything to address The VDOT report? All right, thank you, Mr. Spoonhouse. Next on the reports agenda is, I think, our HR Director, Ms. Rice, will come forward with introduction of new county staff. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. On behalf of County Administration, we have 2 new employees that started with us in January. The first one is actually in our Public Utilities Department, and she comes to us with 20 years of customer service experience. She is filling the Customer Service Specialist position over there, which you all approved as a new position. And I think she's here today, Portia Pace. Stand up.
Welcome, Portia.
Welcome.
And our second employee is with the fire department, and he started in January as well. He was a firefighter in Raleigh, North Carolina before coming here. His name is Jeremy Lee. I think he's in the room, or was supposed to be. He's on a call right now.
All right.
He's doing his work.
That's right.
That's all that I have for you all as far as new employees for January.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And Chief Ferguson, please let Mr. Lee know that we welcome him. Thank you. All right. Chief, I think you're up next. Fire and rescue report.
So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Eddie Ferguson, Fire Rescue Chief. Like most months, we did submit a report, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have about that. I do have some highlights that I'd like to share with you about current events and activities going on within fire rescue. Of course, the most recent snowfall always increases our call totals a little bit. We answered 28 calls over the snowy weather the last couple of days. I think things were handled very efficiently and safely. We didn't have any incidents. I'll tell you that we do change our policies when we have inclement weather, and particularly snow and icy roads. We start reducing the amount of apparatus that we put on the road for certain call types. But if it's a working incident, then we respond to normal types of resources. In addition, we send brush trucks with every ambulance to each EMS call. And the idea with the brush truck going, they're four-wheel drive vehicles. They can get in the driveways, and many times over the years, we've had to bring a patient out to the roadway in the brush truck to be transferred over to the ambulance. And so I know there were several incidents where that occurred over the past 48 hours. In addition, fire rescue completed year 2020, thank goodness, with 3,159 emergency responses. That was down a little bit compared to 2019. We think it was down primarily due to the COVID. The springtime, the call numbers were down. Many of our business parks in the county were people were not working in person, so the calls that typically that generates did not occur, as well as large crowd events that can generate on the ups of 30 or 40 calls per event. So we believe, though, that 2021 is going to be a busier year for us in call volume. The fall of the year of 2020, we noticed the increase in calls, and in January, we finished with 245 calls compared to 241 last year the same time. I would like to just recognize, as Mr. Young did, all of our personnel who have been helping with emergency services, and particularly the regional vaccination clinics and the COVID hotline. We have, Fire Rescue has about 28 or so plus personnel. Some are working multiple shifts, both at Richmond International Raceway, the West Creek Emergency Center clinics, as well as the clinic that was held on January the 16th at Company 5 for public safety in the school system, as well as many of our volunteers, our CERT volunteers, and other volunteers who serve on other aspects of emergency services that are helping with the COVID hotline, both here locally and throughout the region. We've also been working with the county government and the Virginia Department of Health to try to determine the best vaccination strategies for our county, above and beyond what is being looked at. What can we do as an organization to help move that along? So we're exploring those options presently. I'd like to thank the area hospitals, HCA and Bon Secours for providing COVID vaccinations to our fire rescue personnel. They started offering vaccinations to our fire rescue personnel back before Christmas, and we took full advantage of that. And the hospital systems alone vaccinated over 80 of our fire rescue personnel before other clinics were available. And so we really appreciate what they did for us with that. COVID transports are definitely up. For example, in January, we did 132 transports to area hospitals, and of the 132, 29 responses to COVID positive patients. We see this escalating based on 10 in December and 7 in November. What this pretty much means is that when a unit goes and transports a suspected COVID patient, we don't always know who they are, sometimes we do. The crew comes back, the unit is taken out of service for a period of time where an extensive decon process goes through. The equipment that you guys provided for us earlier last year is in use, our foggers and our ultraviolet cleaning systems. Crews also have to change uniforms, take showers, and get ready for the next calls. But it does keep the unit out of service for a little bit longer. I just want to mention to you that the emergency operation plan is coming along nicely. We have the draft, and we hope to be back in April for your consideration for the adoption of the new emergency operations plan. Just a public safety sort of announcement for the citizens. We just would ask everybody to be really cautious with fireplace ashes and coals that are taken out of stoves. We've already had two fires in the community that were as a result of fireplace ashes that were one was put on the back deck of a home, and the other was set in a nearby field. And what's misleading about that is fireplace ashes that are compacted can hold heat days beyond when you think they're completely cold and out. And it isn't unusual to see fireplace ashes that are placed in a container and compacted or spread on the edge of a field. Windy day starts to set the field on fire, and that's what happened in the east end of the county with a shed that was destroyed in January from fireplace ashes. They would best be stored in a metal container, completely drenched and soaked with water, and moved away from your home and away from anything that would be flammable, and allow the proper amount of time for those to completely extinguish themselves. Just let you know that our new tanker we're expected to receive our new tanker going to Company 5 in the end of this month. The ladder truck is still on delivery for the summer, and we have several ambulances on order. We're hoping to receive the first of that group of vehicles in March, and so we are looking forward to receiving that. I wanted to just bring one thing to your attention. This year, 2021, is the 70th year of the Fire Rescue Department, the inception of the Fire Rescue Department. And if you would allow me, I would like to read you just a short opening remarks from a historical document that we have that was written by the late Mrs. Mary Catherine Shepard of Mannequin Company 1. And the title of the irony, or the title of the document, is From Ashes, the Beginning of Goochland County's Fire Department. In the early pre-dawn hours of October 30th, 1951, orange flames leaped skyward to pierce the morning mist over the sleepy village of Mannequin. Dover Baptist Church on present-day Mannequin Road, having stood the ravages of both religion and the elements of over 96 years, burned to the ground. The community was in shock. By sunrise, all that remained was the smoldering debris and a pile of gray ashes. Yet, from these smoking ashes came the recognition, inspiration, determination of interested community folks for the need to organize a fire protection company for the area. So a lot has changed in 70 years. Our equipment, our stations, we deal with things in 2021 that we never thought we would have to deal with. But the one thing that I can tell you that hasn't changed, and that is the dedication and the commitment and the will of our members to provide the best service possible to the residents of Goochland County. So hopefully this year, when things get back to normal, we hope, there'll be some type of opportunity to have a gathering that we can commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Fire Rescue Department. In the early years, it was referred to as the Dover Pembroke Fire Department. And so on ending, I just would like to recognize our members for what they are able to do. They give of their time and talents and skills, and we're very proud of each and every one of them. And I would also like to just say thank you to this board and our county administrator and county administration for all the support that you give us to be able to operate the fire rescue department. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief, for all you do, absolutely. I just wanted to drill down just a little bit on the COVID vaccine response. We're still working through the Chickahominy Health District, right?
We are, yes, ma'am.
Right, so there are not vaccines that are actually physically given to Goochland County necessarily.
That is correct. We have not been able to successfully identify a supply of vaccine. So any vaccine that we would have available, which we do not have any available that isn't already spoken for, is at the present time through the Chickahominy Health District.
Right.
Like Henrico County and some others in the region, we are exploring other options on other ways that we could potentially acquire a supply of vaccine. But as you can imagine, there's a line for that too.
Right.
But we are looking at that, and we're working with Mr. Young and Mr. Stamey and the Health Department just to see if there's anything more we can do in addition to the regional efforts.
If you don't mind a
Please,
follow-up.
keep going.
So in order to sign up for the vaccine, that is through the website, through the Chickahominy Health District. And then we have a hotline. Has
We
that
do.
been soft launched or is that launched?
So that has been soft launched. I think we would say the hotline is more of a way that a citizen can call in and leave a message. And then we have a group of county employees and volunteers who will return their calls to be able to give the proper information. Mr. Drumright certainly deserves a lot of credit for that. And Mr. Drumright, I would invite you to correct anything that I may be speaking out of school. You're correct on that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. But the idea there is to help
Help.
people get signed up.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, the Health Department has readily admitted that the VAMS process that you hear referred to has been difficult for them to navigate and citizens, and I've looked at it myself, and it certainly takes you through a lot of steps, and it's not as easy as it may be. So they're in the process of looking to switch to a new platform to actually conduct registrations on.
In your opinion, last question, in your opinion, is there anything else that we can do to help speed that process or make the vaccine more available to our citizens? I get a lot of calls, I know we all do. Folks are trying to get in the queue, if you will.
Right. I don't know that there's anything more that we can do. I can tell you that because of our participation in the regional clinics, we're demonstrating that we are a regional partner and having boots on the grounds in those clinics, which are keeping those open and available to our citizens in the county. And so we will do that. Fire rescue, we have a paramedic at RIR today that's probably vaccinating. And I can also tell you that the Virginia Office of EMS has recently made some changes to allow EMTs to be vaccinators. But once again, we have some plans, but until we can identify a way to get
Right.
vaccine, it's hard to put those plans into action.
Right. Yeah, you gotta have the product, right?
Gotta have the
I mean,
product.
that's like
Right.
Route 1. But again, thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Lascaux.
Was that the last question of the day or just? Any questions? Yes, Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that update, Chief. And again, let me just pile on and add, on behalf of all the citizens of the Goochland community, thank you for everything you do, especially during this time of emergency and pandemic. And I know this emergency situation is placing additional demands on your resources. And I think I read in your prepared remarks that there was a graduation from one of your academies. Could you touch on staffing just briefly? Because I know we're
Yes, sir.
endeavoring to keep your staffing up to
Yes, sir. And so there was a recent graduation, or actually this was, so there was a recent graduation from one of our fire academies. We actually haven't had the actual ceremony, but we did complete a fire academy where 13 volunteers and one career member participated in. So we're bringing in volunteers, all the time and putting them through training. We also have an EMT class that's actively in session, observing COVID-19 precautions and guidelines. and it has 9 members in it presently, and is being held at the training center and some at Company 5. As far as our career staffing goes, we do have one vacancy in addition to the gentleman that was introduced here today, and we have made a conditional job offer to another gentleman who has pre-certified, his pre-certs certifications for fire and rescue, and hopefully we can bring him into the fold in the probably early spring. I'll tell you that we are still able to staff all of our stations 24/7. We have at least 2 career members on duty at each station. Some stations occasionally have 3, depending on the leave and who's on annual leave or possibly has another assignment of some type, in addition to our volunteer members who supplement and are part of that staff, and where we can actually increase the crew sizes at those locations and respond multiple vehicles. The snow event was a good example of where both volunteer and career work together to respond multiple pieces of apparatus out of one station, as opposed to other vehicles having to travel long distances.
Yeah, I know this year was a special kind of year in terms of presenting challenges to attracting and retaining and
Right.
new personnel, but as we seek to grow and add staff and whatnot, my question really, are you able to find qualified folks out there? This year, again, being a special year, it's a little tough.
So
Perhaps
that's a really good question, and Deputy Chief Watkins and Gordon and Captain Markey, we have the conversation pretty regular. Honestly, the hiring process that we did in 2020, the list of eligibility is very, very near being depleted. However, what I will tell you is that looking ahead, we have positions that are being requested in the FY '22 budget. And we're going to put ourselves in a position where if we cannot find pre-certified personnel, we're going to train our personnel. I think it's time to take that step. We'll start an academy at the training center. We'll try to bring in people that have some of those qualifications, and we'll offer the ones that possibly, in order to get the number of people that we need. The fact is that Goochland is much like other smaller jurisdictions, just like us. We all are competing for the same group of personnel, particularly pre-certified personnel for the career positions. It's just that pool is just not there. And of course, volunteer recruitment is something we do year-round, and Deputy Chief Gordon and his membership committee, they lead that effort. And, we try to bring those folks in, and we provide all the training. Occasionally, we get lucky and we get a volunteer that already has the training from another jurisdiction.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you
you.
again for everything you do. That's all I had, Mr.
Thanks for your
Chairman.
questions.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any board members, anything else? Chief,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Peterson, and he saw the same bullet point in your report that I stopped at, the Fire Training Academy, the 13 members in January, and then you said 9 EMTs.
Yes, sir.
And it sounded like your comments were talking about there's going to be an increased need to use that facility potentially.
The Fire Rescue Training
Yeah,
Center?
the Henley
Yes,
training.
sir.
So you say we continue to seek repairs to our training building as well as overall improvements to the Henley Fire Rescue Training Center. We're getting ready to roll up our sleeves into the CIP
Right.
budget, so we'll see a lot, I know, from you in the details, but just for like initial introduction and for the public,
Sure.
Are you lining up what you need and
are.
asking us for what you think you need to keep
Yeah.
the momentum?
Yes, sir, we are. The Henley Fire Rescue Training Center was opened new in 1981. Fire Chief Earl Henley worked with the Department of Fire Programs at the time, and we were able to build we referred to it all these years as the burn building, the structural building that we practice interior live fire training in. And that building, over the years, has got a lot of use and now is in need of some repairs. We haven't been burning in the building since 2017 or before. At this point, we're not using the building for anything. We need to make some masonry repairs, some repairs to the windows, some painting and so forth, to start to use the building in a way where we're not even burning in it, just to get back to the point to use it as what we refer to as a cold building. So we are looking at that, and we do have a report that just came in from a civil engineering firm that lays out the that particular condition of that building. And it does appear that that building is worthy of some additional investment to get to the point to use it again as a coal building. And once we get to that point, there are other options that we can look at, possibly adding on to the building, a compliant room that we could possibly burn in to simulate the live interior structure fire training. So we're looking at that, and the fire training center in general is in need of some additional repairs. Our modular classrooms are showing their age. The modular classroom that we use there, probably the most is our fire classroom, was a secondhand modular trailer that was given to the fire rescue department in the 90s from the Department of Corrections. And we keep that in good condition, but it's time to replace that as well as look at some other improvements to the site. As our department grows, we need to be able to offer an environment that we can train our personnel. And in my opinion, I would say this is one of the big projects that's facing fire rescue is, one, to get to the point to be able to fully use the present site, and then to look ahead into the future and decide, is that location the right site for the type of investment that we're proposing? And I think that's what we have to look at. And we are working with Mrs. Horlacher and Mr. Young, and we're actually preparing our CIP. And we do have some funding in there for FY22 to make immediate repairs to give us a few more years at the present location. And then in the outer years, within the next 10 years, we're proposing a large dollar figure that we could look at, possibly a relocation of the Fire Rescue Training Center. And I don't want to speak for the sheriff here, but I think if he were here, he would tell you that he has similar needs, and we could possibly go together and make it a public safety training center. So,
Good.
I appreciate the question.
No, yeah, well, we know there's some needs there, and glad you're bringing them forth, and
We're bringing it forward. It's a lot of money, and I certainly recognize that, but it's an investment that'll last many years, much like a fire station facility.
Right. Well, I mean, you said 70, a lot has changed in 70 years. I think the change is it's accelerated, and it'll continue to accelerate.
Yeah, Goochland, the Fire Training Center, a lot of the things that we enjoy at the Fire Training Center were donated from Luckstone in the earlier years. We had a fund that was referred to as the Luckstone Fire Training Account, and they helped us make a lot of those improvements in those earlier years. And Goochland was the only rural location around the state that had its own training center. So it was used by jurisdictions from Buckingham and all over the place, Powhatan and Louisa. And now we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have that capability that we once did. So we definitely need to look at that.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you for your questions and your support.
All right, Board, the next item in reports is the planning and development activity. If you have any questions on that, I'm trying to get the page number here. That's going to be page 39 of the packet. Looks like some new filings at the end. If there's any questions, I imagine we can get somebody to field them. If not, the next item again is a item to look at the accounts payable, if there are any questions on that item. Number 5, and now we're not seeing any questions. We'll go to the last item under reports, and I'll start to my right, Mr. Spoonhour, if you have anything to report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a couple things from the committees I'm on, so thank you for the time. The first one I want to talk about is Plan RVA. I am honored to be the chair of Plan RVA for this year, and for those of you that don't know, Plan RVA is a regional organization of 9 different counties that get together and work on planning things. A lot of work around emergency management, transportation, and I wanted to call out that there's a monthly webinar. They've taken advantage of the Zoom call platform and are doing monthly webinars that I would encourage citizens and staff to check out. You could look at your convenience. They did one 2 months ago on emergency management and all the efforts that they do regarding emergency management. And this past one was on housing, and our own Carol Dunlap from Goochland Cares was on the panel for that. So some great stuff there. The other update I have is from the Central Virginia Transportation Authority. For those of you that aren't aware, the CVTA is a new organization that was stood up based on legislation passed by the General Assembly that allowed for lack of a better word, a taxing district. A taxing district where in July, additional gas tax was implemented, and in October, a sales tax. The revenues generated from that portion come back to Goochland County. So 50% of the revenues come back to us, 35% go to regional projects, and then 15% to public transportation. We are getting the first round of dollars that are coming in, and it's significant money. And the 50% that will be come back to us, we will be setting aside for our own local transportation. We just received our Smart Scale application results, and they're again, for another round, we're not as favorable as we would like, so this is going to be a great opportunity. But also, I will put a plug in. If you follow me on Facebook, you know I've done this, but it's a great reason to buy local. So if you're coming from Henrico and you need to fill up, wait till you hit the Wawa there in Goochland, or get to the Oilville exit, because those revenues do come back to us. And even your grocery shopping, I think the first distribution to us is a little over $300,000. So that will add up quickly, and there's a lot of projects that we will be able to knock out because of that. So I think that's just about it.
Thank you, thank you. Anything from you, Ms. Lasclat, on anything? Okay, and I know we might, we are our TPO, so I know that's tomorrow morning. We have the Richmond Regional Transportation, so as we get settled into that this year, we might have some things to report. Not a whole lot affects Goochland sometimes, but we'll report on that. We have that. Anybody on this end have anything to share? Under the Finance and Audit Committee, just congratulations, Mr. Peterson, for your election. Was it unanimous? I wasn't there for it.
I believe it was. It's a long, hard-fought campaign.
Yes, our chairman of the Finance and Audit Committee, which is a
Yes,
big
sir.
year ahead, so thank you for that.
Yes,
Go ahead.
sir. Yeah, again, for those that may or may not be aware, I currently chair the Finance and Audit Committee and was, I guess, reelected moments ago. We had a meeting just before this gathering at 1 o'clock today, and we discussed several items and had a lengthy discussion. Among things, we elected new officers and did a reorganization, but we also discussed the second quarter results for Goochland County, and we'll be hearing, this board will be hearing a presentation on the second quarter results under our new business later on in this meeting, so I won't steal any of that thunder. But the lights are still on, so that should give you some indication as to where we stand. We also discussed our various financial policies that we have in place now, and we have a very strong set of policies right now, but we had some discussion around even strengthening those further going forward as we prepare to present the county's financial position going forward to the rating agencies. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my remarks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Sharp, anything to report?
I don't, I'm on the Clean Clear Works Committee, and the next meeting on that is scheduled for February 19th. So
Good, all right,
what just happened on that recently.
thank you. All right. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Young to cover the consent agenda items number 1 and number 3. Item 2 was deferred a month, so Mr. Young, if you could give us an overview of the consent agenda.
I believe item 1 was.
One was,
Item 1 was
I'm sorry, I
deferred.
looked at it incorrectly. 2, so 2 and 3. Number 1 was deferred. Items 2 and 3, sorry about that, thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Item number 1 was deferred to your March meeting. Item number 2 is the authorization for the county administrator to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Virginia Department of Corrections for a shower and power facility. The memorandum of understanding provides the county with an alternative option to offer residents in times of emergency or disaster declaration. The MOU provides the opportunity to shower and power. What that means is, in these cases where power is out for an extended period of time, Goochland residents would be able to go to the facility to take a shower, access fresh water, and power electronic devices. The county also has a similar agreement in place with the YMCA as an additional location. The staff recommends approval of this item. The second item tonight for the consent agenda is a request to set a public hearing for March 2nd, 2021 on a lease agreement on county property located at 2952 River Road West in Goochland. The board is requested to set the public hearing to consider a lease agreement between the county and Tom's Auto Service. The lease is for the property, and it's approximately 3,600 square feet of operating space at a monthly rent of $2,194. The agreement is for a 2-year initial term with renewable terms and provisions. The lease will automatically renew for a 6-month term unless either party provides written notice of non-renewal at least 6 months prior to the end of the term. Staff recommends the board set the public hearing for March 2nd, 2021. That's all I have for you today.
Thank you. On those two items that remain on the consent agenda, are there any questions from the board? Yes, ma'am.
Do we want to do a motion first in the discussion? Does it matter?
It's fine. Go ahead and make a motion. If we can knock that out. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the two consent items. They're item number 2 and 3 on our consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Laskett. Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Spoonhour. Okay, now discussion on the motion that's before us.
Now I have a question. Just asking on item 2, the MOU with Department of Corrections, is there a cost to the county?
I think we have Kemi from Social Services here can
Okay.
kind of answer that a little bit more.
Mr. Chair, board members, afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There is no cost to the county. There is some information in the MOU about if damages occur, and we have explored looking into our county's insurance, and that would be covered. So there is no cost for us to utilize the facility. Emergency, EMT and social services and several others went out and took a tour of the facility, and DOC was in agreement that this would be a good use for the training academy if there was a need for it. We also have a similar agreement with the YMCA here in Richland. We were exploring, looking for more resources for the county in case there was some type of emergency where electric was out for an extended period of time.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. That answers the question.
Any
Thank
other
you.
Thank you.
questions? Thank you.
Any other questions on the two items in the consent agenda? All right. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, it's unanimous. Consent agenda is approved. And now we move on to new business. And Mr. Kilduff, I believe, is going to present the first item on the agenda, the Economic Development Calendar Year 20 report. Good afternoon, Mr. Kilduff.
All good. All right, good afternoon as well. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Young, I'm Todd Kilduff, Deputy County Administrator for Community and Economic Development. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present this report to you today. It's kind of interesting that it's February and we give this report every February. And in February of last year, it was only about 5 or 6 weeks before the country shut down. So this report is definitely going to have a little bit of a different feel to it because we have a little bit more to report on. I don't think that's really a secret, but we do have some information for you. And I also want to thank Mr. Lau for his comment. We talk to Marshall Wynn frequently. I will be sure to, I think I call him probably 5 times a day. I'm happy to relay your kudos to him, so thank you for that. I'd also like to take a second to recognize Mr. Kurt Pidduck. He's actually the chair of the Economic Development Authority who's here with us today. And we also have Mr. Kenny Collier, the treasurer of the Economic Development Authority, who's also with us today. And I want to thank them for their service to the county and for being here for this report. And also Sarah Worley, KCC Lurberg in our Economic Development Department. So without further ado, move into the report itself. As with last year, if you recall, was the first presentation we had. Thank you for that. How long was it off? Do I have to start all over? So with the updated strategic plan, we have a vision and a mission statement. We're very strategic in how we wrote both of those. The vision statement doesn't just talk about commercial growth, if you read it, because I think there's a perception that economic development is really growing the county with the next, I don't know, big box store, the next Facebook and Amazon. While that's a portion of economic development, that's only a small portion. There's so much more that we do. And Goochland County, as you know, is largely an agricultural county. So we want to make sure that the agricultural section of our county get lost in the mix. So we purposely put in there preserving Goochland County's agricultural heritage. So we always want to start out with that vision statement, which rolls directly into our mission statement, which focuses on 4 main points in the strategic plan. Our new business, recruiting new business, retention and expansion of our existing businesses, tourism aspect, and then also sort of the in-house portion of it. We call it our workforce development, but it's really the economic development department as a whole. Having said that, roll into some of the actual stats, some of the metrics that we track. These are things that we use very frequently. As a matter of fact, I only have about 6 slides on these stats, but there's so much more that we track internally, but these are really the high points. This first one's capital investment. This is very important to us because we want to know who's coming to the county, how much investment's being made in the county, and what are really the overall trends. If you notice in 2017, 2018, 2019, those were pretty big numbers right there. But think about the projects that were associated with those, it makes a lot of sense. We had the Audi dealership, the Residence Inn, even though that didn't open until now, the initial investment was a few years ago. That's when they were buying the land, buying the building, buying the structure, getting the contracts with contractors in line. Let's see, Tuckahoe Pines, that's where a lot of these projects lie, right in there. And Sheltering Arms was a big one. That was almost a $100 million project. So that's really where you see these capital investments. Even though 2020 is on a decrease, as you can see, it's on a lower, we firmly believe that 2021 is actually going to go back up for several reasons. One is Greenswell Growers is a project which I'll touch on in a later slide. That's about a $17 million investment. But a big $200 million investment is Avery Point. That's at the end of Wilkeshire Parkway. It's a continuing care retirement center. They actually just submitted for the first 4 of 14 buildings. So we have the plans in-house right now for 4 of their buildings. So they are running and rolling out there, and we're very happy that they chose Goochland County to land. Another metric that we look at is total commercial square footage. This is, just to put it in perspective, Madarva is one of, Madarva you would kind of think would be office, but that's actually flex space. So just wanted to define flex space, because sometimes when you see that, it's like, what is flex space? What does it actually mean? Madarva is a good example for that. But if you notice, commercial square footage doesn't really go down unless you're demolishing a building per se. But this is a metric that we use. We want to track all of it, industrial, office, retail, and flex, as you see up there on the screen. And you can see steady increases among all of them. Specifically among retail, you see over the past 10 years, there was about a 20% increase just on the retail side alone, but a steady increase across the board there. Vacancy rates. This is a slide we had last year, and my comments are very similar on the vacancy rate slide, because even though when comparing Goochland, which is in the orange, to the Richmond metropolitan statistical area, which is in green, and then Virginia, which is in gray, you can see our numbers are pretty low. And on the surface, it says, okay, what availability is out there is actually filled. What's out there is already filled, hence the low number. But we know that it's actually not that good, because it just means we just don't have the inventory. The reason this is important is because we know that without the inventory, we can actually have conversations with developers and landowners, and we know that because they call us. We have landowners and developers that call us and say, what do you need in Goochland County? What are you looking for? And with this slide, we're able to say we have very low vacancy rates, really on the office side of things. And if that's what you want to do, that's something that could probably fill up pretty quick if you want to go ahead and build something office related. So what that does is we're able to sit down with them. We go over in our GIS system and pinpoint very strategic area them to put their businesses and things like that. So this is important to us, and it helps us have conversations. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Perhaps if we could stay on this slide just for a second. Sure. That center office, you just touched on office vacancies. You may or may not be closer to the market than this board is in terms of what the expectation is going forward. Most of the offices have been lights out for the last most of the year, and people have been working virtually. And the question becomes, do those lights go back on and do those offices get filled back up again or not? And I don't know if you're hearing anything about in Innsbruck, Henrico, Chesterfield, whether folks are deciding they're going to repopulate those offices and the vacancy will stay where it is, or whether there may be some either abandonment or reconfiguring the way they conduct business going forward.
Yeah.
If you could touch on that to the extent
Yeah,
you're
no,
able to.
that's a fair comment. Don't have a crystal ball, so we don't really truly know, but what we can tell you is there's been very few businesses that we've talked to that don't want to go back to business. As a matter of fact, a lot of them find it very difficult. Some find it easier to telework. Yes, that is true. But there's a lot, they just need the face-to-face. A lot of sales companies are that way. They need that face-to-face. They want their employees in the office so they can have internal meetings and talk about what they're going to do, because it's just easier. For almost the past year, we've been doing these Zoom calls. And while Zoom has been a very good tool to help us through this COVID pandemic, it's actually not the best thing out there. I don't know how many Zoom calls you've been on, but I've been on so many where the sound wasn't working, the video wasn't working, somebody got dropped off, somebody had poor internet connection. So it's been a good tool, right? Like it's been there for us, but at the end of the day, a lot of the chatter from businesses that we've been hearing and people that I've had conversations with, they want to go back to their building. They want to open back up. And some of them have done it on a limited base, depending on, how many employees they have and things like that. Not the best answer to your question, but the reality is we're watching it right now. We're listening to the chatter, and we hope to have some better information on that very soon. So,
Good, I think
especially with the
that's-
vaccine coming out.
Yes, and to your point, it is a fluid situation, it is a developing situation. You may be incrementally closer to it than this board, so any feedback you have at any point that you're prepared to share with us that's meaningful, we'd welcome that kind of thing as well, so.
Yes. No, not a problem.
Thank you,
for that.
Todd, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
no problem. Sort of continuing with the COVID conversation per se. There's a lot going on in this graph, but really the red line is the United States, green line is Virginia, yellow is Goochland. And that's really tracking the unemployment. As you can see, if you move across through the years, unemployment, as we know, last year, has been just steadily been going down, which has been great. When COVID hit, you see the little spike there. The red line, the green line, the yellow line are all going up. We're still less than the state of Virginia, still less than the United States. And what's actually kind of interesting is at this moment on that particular data point that's being shown there, that number, even though it's up, is still less than we were from 2012 to almost 2016. So the number's still pretty low, but it is something that we need to keep track of. So that's just the latest information we have at the moment. Maybe the next quarter it goes up more, hopefully not. With the vaccine out, hopefully the curve starts to flatten and we start to see the number stay at either 3.4 or decrease again. But at the moment, it is kind of interesting to look at that number and see that from 2012 to 2016, it's still lower than those numbers. Hopefully, fingers are crossed, it doesn't continue to increase. But and we did actually overlay labor force on this, because intuitively you'd say, okay, well, COVID hit, there's been unemployment, so the labor force will start to decrease a little bit. And while that was a portion of this, what we found interesting when we dug into the data was a lot of people were just retiring early. They were just like, hey, the COVID pandemic, I wasn't going to retire for a year, I wasn't going to retire for 6 months, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it now. There was also a portion of that number where a husband or a wife decided to stay home with the kids because their kids had to do virtual learning. And it just made it too difficult to go to the office. So hopefully, as things get better, those numbers will actually start to change a little bit. But we found that one very interesting when we started to overlay it with the actual unemployment numbers. Net new jobs in the county? Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
About 3,000 people left the labor force, did I see that correctly?
And I'm sorry, which section are you looking
The
at?
labor force, 3,000 people left the labor force
Oh, yeah, so you're looking at like 11,
from 19 to 20.
yeah,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, yeah, that looks about right. In thousands, 1 to
No,
10,000.
no, I'm looking.
Labor
they're
force
on-
is in the
11.
right-hand,
You're doing the 11
The
to
labor's on the
10.
right, so 11.2, almost to 11.2.
Yeah, we probably could have picked better numbers there on the right side of the screen.
11.3 to 10.8, so you
Instead of the
maybe.
quarter increments, but yeah, it's in thousands. So it'd be 10,750, 10,000, 11,250, so on and so forth, so. Yeah. Sorry, we'll change the numbers next time. Did I answer your question before I move
Yeah,
on?
yeah, and I'm sorry, I looked at it wrong. I was
No,
looking-
I was just trying to figure out where you're at on the peak there.
Yeah.
So. Net new jobs. This is also another important metric that we track. Having new businesses come to the county is great, but what kind of jobs are they creating? Sheltering Arms added several hundred jobs. Drive Shack, if you recall when Drive Shack opened, they were looking for 350 employees. I think we ever really predicted that initially when they said, hey, we're going to choose Goochland and we're going to be moving in. But that's full-time and part-time. So their business is a little different from a normal office-type building. But this is something that we're looking at, as you can see, in just the third quarter of 2020. The numbers are down. We were kind of expecting that. This is something that we're going to continue to track, and hopefully over the course of time, the numbers do go up. Some numbers that aren't included in here, again, I mentioned Greenswell Growers. That's going to have probably 14 employees. It's not open yet, so there are no new jobs at the moment for that. Avery Point's going to have probably several hundred new employees once they start to open buildings sequentially. Again, 4 new buildings have been applied for, building permit-wise, and as they move forward, they'll start to have more and more employees. Again, COVID definitely impacted all these numbers, but we're hoping over the course of time, they start to uptick. This is a slide we showed last year. We just updated the numbers, of course, but it's really showing our annual wages. Goochland County has been higher than Richmond in the entire state of Virginia, and we continue to still be higher as far as annual wages go. Back in 2016, just doing the quick math, I think it's somewhere around $35,000 difference. Moving to 2020, it's about 40,000. So numbers are going up and down a little bit, but across Gooch and the overall average annual wage is definitely higher by the state than the state. So those are some of the metrics that we do use and that we find very important. They help us have conversations, not with you as the Board of Supervisors, but also the Economic Development Authority as well, landowners, developers. If there's anything that I didn't cover as a metric that you would like to see, by all means, let us know. We may actually be tracking it. We just didn't show it up here. We're happy to provide any of the information. If it's not something we're tracking, we're happy to start doing so. But I want to move into the next part of this presentation, which really dives into the strategic plan. This is the meat and potatoes. This is the heart of what we do. We've only had this updated plan for about 1.5 years, and it has very specific goals in here, from new business, existing business, tourism, and then the economic department itself. So moving into goal number 1. I'm obviously not going to read all the text on the left side there, but we did categorize it for you. We have some strategies that we've completed. For example, the first bullet point says building relationships. Well, while that's completed, yeah, that's something that's still ongoing and something that we're always going to continue to do. But it wasn't something that was being done a few years ago. We weren't attending the Chamber of Commerce meetings. We weren't meeting regularly with what's called the VEDP. That's the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. There was just a lot of outreach that we just weren't doing at the moment. We had limited staff. We went from 1 person to 3 overnight. So it affords us the opportunity to get out there and shake some more hands and bump some more elbows. So that's one thing that's not necessarily a completed strategy, but something that's ongoing, just to put it in perspective. But in the section titled Underway Strategies, last bullet point, define target industries. That's something that we're working on right now. We're actually on the tail end of it, and we're very excited to present it not just the Board of Supervisors, but the Economic Development Authority as well. What it is we get asked frequently, what are we looking for here in Goochland County? What kind of commercial businesses are we trying to tackle? Who do we want to be here? And we've never really had a good answer. The answer's been, we know what we're not looking for. And that's not really a good answer. We know we're not, we always say it, we're not looking for smokestacks and paper mills. We know that. But what are we looking for? What is the market showing, not just nationally, but regionally, Richmond area, and Goochland just by itself? That's what this report is going to pin down for us. They have these very specific codes, they call them NAICS codes, N-A-I-C-S, I believe. It has all these little different numbers associated with it. It's going to start to drill into those numbers. The longer the number goes, the more defined the business is that you're looking for. So we're very excited about that. And actually, Casey's been heading that up, and Mr. Sloan on the Economic Development Authority has been assisting her as well. We're excited about that. We only have 2 years of data for this one, so you're only seeing 2 bars. But it has to do with the leads, and this goes back to the first comment I made on the previous slide, is getting out there and letting Virginia Economic Development and Partnership know who we are. That's in the orange. You could see we went from I think six projects we doubled it to 12 projects. And we firmly believe it's because we're letting them know more who we are here in Goochland County and what we have to offer. We have several business parks. We have one that's over 3,000 acres. So they don't know that. They don't know what they don't know. So we're very purposeful in calling them and letting them know who we are. And when Casey got hired, we only had, I think, a few projects in their system, VA scans. She's actually gone in and increased it. I think we're up to a few hundred now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just letting VEDP know, hey, there's a lot more stuff happening here in Goochland. There's a lot more land on the market right now. So we will continue to monitor that as it goes. Having said all that, we do have some excellent new businesses that have come here. Last year, we had a slide that had, I think, probably 15 different pictures on it. We got 3 here for you. Sheltering Arms, $95 million. Residence Inn had their grand opening, I believe it was October. Greenswell Growers is that middle picture. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but I would like to touch on it. It's a $17 million project. And what it is, it's this really, it ties directly into the agriculture heritage portion of our vision. It's in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District on the east end of the county, right off Hockett Road. It's kind of hard to miss the construction because there's a lot going on, but it's tree line, so you really have to look real quick. But what it is, it's this facility that's really just going to take a seed, drop it in a pot. Over the course of about 30 days, the pot will go down this conveyor belt, and by the end, it's a head of lettuce, a saw blade cuts it off, it falls into a clamshell container and goes out to market. It's a really neat business model. The entire thing is integrated. So it's a fancy greenhouse, if you want to just say it that way. But the greenhouse itself is integrated in it because of the glass that they use. It's just not typical glass. It's high-end glass. It comes from Europe, and all of it's mechanical. This massive facility is only going to have probably 13 to 15 employees because it's all just mechanical. You're really going to have mechanical engineers and electrical engineers on site just to make sure the programs are working properly, things like that. But there's minimal transportation associated with it. They said probably 1 to 2 semi-trucks will go in and out of there all day, so the traffic's limited. So very glad they've chosen Goochland County. And if you want to check out their website, it is greenswellgrowers.com, I believe. And if you scroll down, they have a motion animation of their construction, which is pretty, which was had some of these photos. So those are some new businesses, but we do have some existing structures here in the county that have been upfitted. And we just wanted to recognize some of the businesses that have chosen to come here to Goochland County. We have Batonaway is the number 2 on the list, an herbal vitamin manufacturer. North River Outdoors, it's almost right next door to the Economic Development Center down the road. Rainbow International is a mold remediation. Just several awesome new companies have come to the county. And with these, every new business, we actually send them a nice little card that says, welcome to Goochland County. We're here for you. What are your needs? Things like that. Very appreciative. As a matter of fact, there's one guy who, he was in Henrico County and he was there for decades. And when he got the card, he's like, I was in Henrico County for decades. Nobody ever contacted me. I'm here like a week and you send me this card. He was just like, that's awesome. So that's just something little that we do. A little card doesn't cost us really anything, but a little bit of time. So existing businesses, it's very carbon copy kind of slide from the goal number 1. But a lot of things that we've done here, we've really stepped up more the business retention expansion visits. Even though COVID has impacted that, Sarah's actually been very creative on even if a business says, hey, I don't want you to come in my business, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So we're still making phone calls. You know, the face-to-face is really the nice thing to do. We're still doing phone calls and emails and just trying to get the word out there that we're here for them. And I'll roll into some slides of what that actually means here in a second. We do have some future strategies. We would love to do something fun like a Biz Awards program. We want to do some roundtables with our businesses. Excuse me. The schools does a really awesome roundtable. If you've attended it, you know what I'm talking about. They have a business school roundtable. It's so much fun. We want to do something similar to that because it's not just marketing us, but it's also bringing our businesses to each other. And it helps them network as well. So that's something we want to do. Hopefully, if COVID subsides, we can get there. It's just a few numbers on what we're actually doing, how many businesses we've gone to, 39. We've done 3 business park walks. We attend as many chamber events as we can to help support our local chamber, and we've had 3 grand openings just this past year. So when we meet with these businesses, we don't want to just say, hi, we're Goochland, welcome to Goochland, and thank you for being here. We want to know what do they like about the county? Is there something they don't like about the county? What, is there anything we can help you with? So this slide ties in with the next one. This one says business challenges on it. The next one actually kind of helps address some of those challenges. We do our best to address all of them, but there's just some we can't. I did want you to focus on the doing business with the county. That's got 8 on it. That is actually, it works actually almost hand in hand with the comments that we get from the community development presentation that I give every September. The comments that we get there are, I want to apply for my permit online. I want to pay my water and sewer bill online. I want to schedule my inspections online. We just don't have that functionality right now. But the good news is, like I mentioned in September, we do have a brand new permitting software program that we're implementing, which is going to address almost all these comments that we get from our citizens as what they want to do. They will be, once the program's in place, somewhere around 15 months from now, I would say we could probably be finished with the project. Anyone can pay their bill online, they can pay for permits online, they can apply for inspections online, and all that's what our citizens are asking for. And when they tell us this, we actually say, hey, just so you know, hold tight. Pretty soon we're going to have this really, really neat online inspection program that you'll be able to use. So we're happy about that. And of course, at the bottom, you have internet. That's always going to be a challenge for mostly central Goochland, western Goochland, but there's a few other things there as well. So, and it depends on, I'm glad I said that because that's more geography related. If you're on the east end of the county, your issues probably aren't broadband as much because you probably already have it, but your issues are going to be more transportation related. Route 288, trying to get on it and off at a rush hour, things like that. As you move west to the county, transportation is not going to be as much of an issue for you. It's probably going to be more broadband related. So we're tracking these things. Last year was the first year, and actually we only had about 6 months of information at that point as to tracking these numbers. But with that information, we're able to assist some of these businesses. Permit guidance, as you can see, that's the biggest one right there. That's number 11. Being a little selfish here, Sarah Worley was actually our customer service center manager for years, so she knows everything about the permit center. So anytime anybody has a call, she knows the answer, so we're able to assist them on that. And also with internet, if you notice at the bottom, we were able to help 5 businesses this past year. We helped 1 last year, 5 this year get broadband, so we were very excited about that. Moving into COVID, even though it's kind of a black cloud on 2020, we do, from the economic development perspective, we really try to make lemonade out of the lemon. So with the board's support and with the Economic Development Authority's support, we had a back to business grant that we put out there. We did a lot of social media blasts on it, a lot of phone calls, and we were able to award about $156,000 to about 29 Goochland businesses, and they were extremely thankful for this program. And so the one right below it, the e-commerce grant. The e-commerce grant, for those listening at home or behind us that may not know what actually is, if you're a business and your business was small enough that you just relied on somebody walking in your door, you get the business, the person walks out, but now your business had to shut for some reason. But you can still move towards the internet. You can still have some sort of online payments with your business. It's just not something you did before. This kind of forced a lot of businesses to get their name out there on the internet and have some sort of payment mechanism on their own website. So that's really what that was about. And we awarded almost $1,800 worth of grants to 7 Goochland businesses, and they were very, very thankful for that. And I actually have a slide after this one that I could show you that shows appreciation. In the vein of being creative, we created this Goochland Bingo. If you haven't seen it, I think we had somewhere around 6,000 transfers of this. That doesn't mean everyone did it, but we know that 6,000 people touched it. It was either on Facebook or whatever. It basically said, hey, go and support our businesses. Go have a beer at Hardywood. Go get spaghetti at Echo Tea, something like that. I know some people that may have filled in the brewery ones first. Raise your hand. But yeah, a lot of people really like that, and it was a lot of fun. There was no reward or award for it, but the award was really just helping out our Goochland businesses. So it was just a fun way of being creative during the pandemic. So, and we also did, and you can see Sarah on the slide there and Casey, and I was actually off the picture, but we went out there and handed out a lot of PPE to businesses that really couldn't afford it. A lot of businesses can. A lot of businesses can afford masks, they can afford gloves, they can afford plexiglass, but there's a lot that just can't. They really rely on the help of the community, and this was something that we just thought was really nice to do. And we went out and handed out PPE, and it was really just a drive-through. You drive up, throw the bag in your trunk. If you pop the trunk, we'll throw it in there. And it had masks, it had gloves, it had hand gel, things like that. And they were just, you could just see the faces of the people that drove out. They were just very thankful for that. And here's some of the feedback. Lots of people have, we just took a few here, but we've had a lot of feedback from people, from the grants, from the e-commerce grant to the back to business stuff. I mean, and handing out PPE. There's just a lot of people very thankful for this. And we just wanted to make sure that we were able to somehow work into one slide some of the feedback that we received. And I'm happy to print this out after this, and if you want to see the act and read word for word. But everyone's very appreciative of what we did. So. Last year, with regards to tourism, goal number 3, we just said, hey, more exciting stuff to come. And still there is more exciting stuff to come, but the strategic plan, which I don't believe was started at this time last year, is well underway, which is why we put that up there. And Mr. Stamey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's well underway, almost to like the 80% stage. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on it, and they hope to present that to you very soon, hopefully this year, maybe even by the summertime. With that, we kind of took like a little preemptive step on it because this, again, COVID helped us be creative with a lot of different things. This is one thing that we're doing. And there's a program out there called Stride. And as we were trying to get the word out with, let's just say the bingo as an example, go to our local restaurants, go to our local breweries, go to Drive Shack, go to these places. Let's say you're a tourist from out of town. You stop in at the Residence Inn. There would be a QR code at the counter of the Residence Inn. You scan the QR code and this pops up. You don't have to download the app. You don't have to sign in. There's no account or anything. You just scan the QR code and this pops up. And let me see if it will automatically work here on the computer. So this is what would actually pop up here, is this little app on your phone so you can scan in. So again, if you're at the Residence Inn, you just zoom in towards Lot Street area. See a little red dot there. You click on it. Oh, that's Drive Shack. That's something I could do. I could just walk across the street. It's got a restaurant. It's got all kinds of stuff in it, fun. You click on these 3 dots, and it gives you an itemized list, alphabetical list of everything that's in the county. And you can just go back to the map whenever you want and zoom back in and just see wherever you are geography, wherever you are in the county, you just zoom in and you see where those dots are. This is something that, while it's really neat to see, and all you got to do is scan a QR code, it was a lot of work. The staff, actually, I pat them on the back because they had to build this from scratch. This is not something that we just, hey, here's an app and all of a sudden everything populated. We had to put in the names of the businesses. We had to put in the address of the business. We had to put in the phone numbers. All the information was populated by the county staff. So we think this is just a really neat way of getting kind of the word out there. It is not live yet. We will let you know when it's live, but we're giving the presentation now, and we wanted you to know that we're on the tail end of this product right here, and we're very, very excited. Once it's ready, we're going to make sure you know it. We're going to make sure the citizens know it, and we'll be doing social media blog on it. Ooh. There we go. So goal number 4, effective department. Hey, we're done, 100%. One of the items on here is creation of the business center. That's done, nothing more to maintain there. We were all moved in, and we're in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, as you may know, right down the road. But there's standards that we've created in the department. So there's a lot of maintenance-related items with this one. So not a lot of objectives, but we ended up completing them all, and it's a lot of just housework now, just making sure we're maintaining, tracking the appropriate information. For example, the entire first chunk of this presentation was all just metrics and data. That's really what that is. And as I said before, if there's anything else you want us to track, by all means, please let us know. But it ties directly into a few things. Last year, we made a very big push on social media. We had not had those accounts before. We now do have those accounts. We've had them for a year now, over a year. And we have a lot more followers on Facebook and LinkedIn. And we have had, obviously, an increase in our website traffic due to COVID because we do have the back-to-business grants, the e-commerce grant, things like that. So our website traffic did increase about 40%. But doing all the social media stuff does take a lot of time. So we actually found a program out there. It's only about $300 a year where you put all of your information into that one program and it spits it out into all these other programs, which saves us a ton of time. We don't have to copy and paste from Facebook to LinkedIn to over here to over here. We have one program now, $300 a year. Post to that, it goes to everything. So another way we're trying to be creative and getting the information out. This one's very neat. First bullet point. Economic Modeling Specialists International, or MZ for short, ranks Goochland number 10 nationally among small counties for talent attraction. And again, that's small counties. That they do categorize large counties, so we're not in that category at all. We're classified as a small county, but we're ranked number 10 nationally. And that could be for numerous reasons. It could be for low taxes. It could be that we have some very good businesses here. We have Capital One. They attract a lot of really good talent from not just the finance side of things, but even on the engineering side. They're constantly renovating their buildings. They have contractors that are basically on site full time. So there's so many different things, different aspects to this. And actually, Casey has been the one that's actually was initially notified of this and has been reading up into it and knows a ton about it. So please, by all means, if you have any further questions on that, we're happy to let you know. I mentioned the Virginia Tech Industry Analysis earlier and Hospitality Boot Camp. That's something that hasn't kicked off yet, but it's something that we're working with what's called the CCWA, the Community College Workforce Alliance. We want to do these training programs, not just with our citizens, but have the businesses that the citizens, after they're trained, could actually work at. We want them involved as well so that they can see who's actually attending these programs. And they're not major programs, but stuff like CPR related, customer service, ServSafe, things like that. So that's what that's about. And next year in this report, we hope to have a lot more information for you on that one. In the vein of getting our names out there, we showed this slide last year. There's a few more things added to it. These are all the boards that we serve on, the committees that we go to, councils we're a part of. We had not had a collective list of anything a few years ago. We now have that list, and I'm very proud of the team for all the things that they do and all the committees that they serve on in what limited time they actually have. New one that's been added to the list is at the very bottom. It's the Capital Region Small Business Development Advisory Board member. I'm not going to say it 10 times fast. It's a big title, but Sarah Worley is actually on that as well. So we're excited about that. More to come. Last slide I have before I open for questions is our future priorities. Like what do we want to do in the next year? Obviously, COVID impact 2020. We want to see how it continues to impact 2021. We're going to continuously look at all the metrics that we showed you earlier. Anything else that pops up, we're happy to look at that. Targeting home-based businesses and agribusinesses, we want to reach out to Monacan Soil and Water Conservation District, the Goochland County Environment Department, because they all actually work hand in hand. We want to reach out to them, understand a little bit more about what they do and how we can help on the economic development side of the house. Create and design marketing plans. Honestly, that's a little more geared towards the West Creek Business Park. What's interesting is that in the Virginia Economic Development Partnership's website, they list West Creek Business Park as a business park. Okay, on the surface, it sounds good, 3,000 acres. But what if you're a business, you don't want 3,000 acres, you just want 400. So we've come to understand that business park, as big as it is, actually needs to be broken up into individual campuses. And we've been working very closely with a landowner who 100% agrees. They're like, we never really thought about it that way. We were like, hey, we got all this land, somebody buy some of the land. We now know we should probably break it up into little campuses and market each individual campus. That way it goes from 1 to potentially 7 campuses in the state system, which could potentially make it more marketable. There's somebody who may see 3,000 acres listed and they're like, I don't want that, and they immediately move on, which could be a bad thing. So we think that's going to help. And the last item is do our best to sustain everything we've done the past 2 years. But with that, thank you so much for your time. And if there's any questions or comments you have, if there's anything I can't answer, I got Sarah and Casey here to support me.
Thank you, Mr. Kilduff. Board members, Ms. Lasclette?
Yeah, I have a simple one. Thank you, Mr. Kilduff.
Sure.
Would you please email this presentation to the board? And also, where will it be publicly available?
We're going to put it on our website. Yeah, sorry, on the Economic Development website. And I can send you a link to that as well.
Okay, on the economic development, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we did the same thing with the Community Development Report. We always post that on the Community
Gotcha.
Development website as
Same
well,
place.
so.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Mr. Sharp?
I know it's nice to see Avery has realized that they've moved from coming to Richmond to then they're now in Short Pump. And hopefully by the time they open, they'll know they're in Goochland.
That's right. Yeah, thank you for that.
Mr. Spoonhour?
Thank you, Mr. Kiloff. It's been quite a year for businesses, and having having my own business here that deals a lot with businesses, got to work a lot, and just very impressed with the ability to quickly pivot. So I'll just steal the,
Hey, I didn't say it, but you can.
I can say it, right? With just so much going on. So first off, I heard over and over again, when people would call for the e-commerce grant, there was somebody picked up the phone and answered. And not only did they helped them through it. It wasn't, and that was great. It was coming alongside local businesses, which I think was fantastic. The one area that I've noticed, I think is interesting to me, which is you have so many organizations that have sort of launched to organize, right? You've got multiple Facebook pages and groups, information all over the place, especially when it comes to the Chamber of Commerce. How do we ensure that our work is dovetailing with theirs and complementing them and not competing with things that they're doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the foundation of that question is the interaction that we have with them on a daily basis. We are constantly communicating. As a matter of fact, they're in our building now, and that's new. And I think that's important for everyone to know. The Chamber of Commerce used to be in a building down the road, and the Economic Development Office was here in this building. They're now in the same building. So I think the big thing right there is the fact that the synergy between the county and the chamber are all in the same building. Every time I go down and talk with Sarah and Casey down in the building, Bonnie's in there, and we always chat. And I think that's really what it's about, that face-to-face chat of what are they doing, what are we doing? Because, and maybe this is a portion of your question, is try not to step on each other's toes. We don't want to plan a ribbon cutting if the ribbon cutting and the chamber's doing, that would just be a mess. But we've been able to avoid all that from the open communication that we have. And we also go to all the chamber meetings as well, so we're well aware of what they're doing, and just the interaction's great. And I can tell you, over the past 2, arguably 3 years, they've just been very appreciative of us coming to the meetings and just seeing what they're doing and interacting with them. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Anything else?
Chair, thank you. Question, I've seen some jurisdictions in some areas form, I don't know, for lack of a better term, an incubator type setup where if somebody wants to start a business and they've never done that before, it can become overwhelming to think about developing a business plan and a financial model, lining up banking relationships, CPAs, attorneys, filing documents, the SEC. It could be a very overwhelming. And so I've seen some form incubators or startups to get them from a standing start to at least start to walk and maybe start to jog, and then are able to go out on their own and do their own thing a few years down the road. Are we doing things along those lines as well?
It's underway, I guess I could say. If you look at the bottom there, the Capital Region Small Business Development Advisory Board, that's something new that's out there, Small Business Development Center. That's what those new things are to do, is to help those small businesses basically start up. Nothing in Goochland as far as the incubator space is concerned, so to speak, and just to touch on that real quick. But as far as just helping a business in general, somebody that may have been a CPA for a company, they want to do their own thing now. How do I do that? That's what these small business things are for. But even though those programs are being set up, there is a lot of information out there that we can help guide them to. Even those programs are being set up at the moment. So if they do call, we actually have websites and other people that we can direct them to immediately. But once those are set up, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're getting these set up, because we recognize the importance of that. So, but that's we're on the tail end of it. Yeah, because it's so important. Because you're absolutely right. We do get calls from people. Hey, what do I do here? How do I do that? So,
Yeah, this falls under excellent presentation. You've come night and day, a long way, and this falls under what have you done for me lately and what's next. But no, thank you for everything you guys have done. It's just, like I said, from a standing start to at least jogging along now is just it's amazing to watch it happen. And the beneficiaries will be the citizens in the community. So thank you for that.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I have a quick question. Your slide about the vacancy in the space, you said there's lack of inventory. And anecdotally, I know your LinkedIn efforts have people telling me like, hey, you guys seem like you have a lot, it's getting attention. People are emailing me, it seems like a lot's going on in Goochland. But then I've talked to you all about some clients and others that are saying what's available, and we just do, or not always, but oftentimes it's like, well, we don't have the inventory. So is something coming with maybe to address that in terms of office space? I mean, is there publicly available?
Not necessarily
Information that's-
publicly available, so I can strategically word this and say there are some things in the hopper that we're aware of. So we hope there's some things that will be coming very soon. I'm reluctant to even name the location because
Sure.
I don't want the landowner to say anything.
Sure,
But, we are under the impression that there's some things in the hopper in the county.
I mean,
If that helps.
I mean, our sense, this graph that shows us there's pressure,
Yes.
that the developers, landowners and others, they're not disputing that fact.
No, not
Nobody's
at all.
arguing that there is pressure, right? I mean, what we're seeing from that chart is consistent with what other people are acknowledging, right?
Yeah, and we know that because we're getting the calls from people who, there's a lot of businesses out there, they don't want to build. They just want to move into something. And that's really what that slide has helped us have a conversation about, is we know we don't have the inventory because it doesn't exist. It's not like we know somebody's going to go out of business or somebody wants to move into the county and something is going to be in the market. We get calls from people, hey, I want 10,000 square feet today. Oh, okay, well, we got a land over it, still has trees on it. That's kind of really where we're at right now. But the beauty of that is, trying to make lemonade out of lemons is the landowners take that to heart, and we're able to show them the data. And, it's not just word of mouth, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not just word of mouth, like, hey, we know we need this. Okay, well, if you're a landowner and you're trying to put millions of dollars of investment, you may have to build a road through your parcel. Like, that's a huge investment in taking down the trees and getting it to a point where it's zoned properly and the whole 9 yards. That's a big investment. And they may not want to do that if just on, Todd Kilduff saying off to the side without any data to back it up. So that's really why that slide's important to us, is it helps have that conversation. And they've really taken that to heart. I can name a few landowners right now that have heard us say that, and they're like, okay, I now know what I need to focus on. And I think that's what's kicked off some of it. Some of it just happens naturally, organically. Somebody wants to come to the county, and they're just going to do it anyway. But we've had a small part of that.
Right. Oh, well, absolutely. Well, your efforts are very impressed. I think Mr. Peterson noted, you've gone quite some strides, and I know you all let us know how we can continue to support you and in the good efforts. And thank you also to Mr. Piddock and Mr. Collier for joining us today, and thank you for your service on the EDA.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Next up is a report from our assessor, Ms. Mary Ann Davis. Thank you for waiting, and is the board good to keep rolling along?
Mine's usually. Yes, ma'am. Okay. I only do this once a year, so I have trouble remembering the different clickers every year. Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Young. I'm Mary Ann Davis, the county assessor. I'm here with Christy Hess, my assistant county assessor over here. And I'm in process to present the 2021 real estate assessment report to you. Oh. Which way? I'm using. Okay, that's fine. I can manage that better anyway. Todd, you broke it. Okay, some assessment highlights. Assessments are made at market value of January 1 each year. The notices were mailed out January the 15th, that was Friday, it was on Friday, and property owners have until Tuesday, February the 16th, to appeal their assessments. And summary of the value changes. The total assessment value net land use and new construction is 6.9%. And then the next one is 6.12 billion. Total taxable values is 84 million is the new construction, which is 1.5 of the overall value increase. New construction consists of 11% commercial and 89% residential. The Tuckahoe Creek Service District fair market values are 1.48 billion,
and the land use assessments are at $662 million. Now, I'll have charts to go along with these here shortly. The next thing, I just want to make sure you're familiar with our appeal process, because when property owners, when they call in to appeal, they contact our office between that January 15th and February 16th deadline. We generally review the characteristics with them and conduct an interior inspection if they allow us to, especially now with COVID. We review sales and equalization, and the taxpayer then is notified of the outcome of the results by the letter. If they want to take it to the Board of Equalization, if the property owner is not satisfied with the informal appeal outcome, they have 30 days from the date on the result letter to make the application to the Board of Equalizations. These forms are available upon request from our office. And then the next and the final step would be if the property owner is still not satisfied with the results from the Board of Equalization, your final step would be to take the case to the Goochland County Circuit Court. So getting back to where these increases are, the taxable assessed value is at $6.12 billion. This is including residential and commercial. The new construction that's been picked up this past year, it's been almost half and half, 43 million for the county and 41 million that's in the Tuckahoe Creek Service District that increased. And I went ahead and put this pie chart in. I know last year we talked about this a little bit more, and I've got it broken down on the next slide after this, but this is based on residential and commercial percentages. On the outside of the pie shows like the commercial last year was at 19.24, this year is at 19.15, and the residential, the percentages is the last year was 80.76, and this year is 80.85. And this is all based on fair market value. And here again, last year you wanted to see these over a period of time, and so as you can see at the bottom over the past years, the percentage of the residential to commercial over those years. Here again, the new construction for residential versus commercial. Residential, as you see in red, that was part of that 89%, and then the yellow, which is a commercial, is a roughly close to 11%, 10.58. And the years that we've had more commercial are the years that we've had like apartments in the Audi dealership and so forth that we've picked up in the past. The Tuckahoe Creek Service District is the 1.488 billion. That shows a growth of 14% increase. 2.8% of that's new construction, and 11.8 is the reassessment. The land use deferment is up to 6.62%. This is roughly $3.5 million in deferred revenue. So in summary, January 2021 reassessment values change of 6.9% is different than what we anticipated in November of about 5%. But the increase is largely to do with increasing costs of construction, lack of improved properties, making this more of a seller's market. The 2022 revenue projections assume an additional increase of 5 to 6%. It all depends on what the market does. I don't have that crystal ball. But any questions?
Mr. Spoonhour?
Could you go back to the slide with the land use?
Okay.
So can you explain that again? You said 6.62%?
It's the amount of deferment, the $662 million in deferment. That is, the deferment is the difference between the market value and the use value.
Okay.
And so, yes, and whenever the market value increases, the larger that deferment will be.
Okay, makes sense. And then are we still around the 50% mark for land in the county that is in land use programs?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's about 51%.
51, okay. Thank you.
Let me follow up. Was
Yeah,
that,
if you don't mind.
well, just to make sure I understood his question. Did you say acreage, was that an acreage question? Land use? 50%. Okay, thank you.
Of the acreage on the county.
Yeah, Ms. Leslie.
Okay, yeah, just to follow up on that. So the fact that that number is up for 21, January 21, well, let me back up. The valuation that we're putting on the per acre, is that changing from last year?
Well, it changed both in the use value, which which has been recommended by the SLEAC, which is that
Right.
State Land Evaluation
Right.
Council. We have that, which really, that dropped again this year. And then we have market value, which increases, so it makes that deferment larger.
That's your gap. But the valuation, the land use valuation, you said went down?
Some of the rates went down a little bit, yes.
Did they? Okay. Is that all three types of land use?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
This end, gentlemen, any questions?
Mr. Chair, so perhaps, I mean, one way to look at this is the county is in effect investing $3.5 million a year to subsidize agricultural businesses.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So 662 million is just a portion that's deferred.
Is the deferment. It is the amount of the market value versus the use value. And the difference between those two, those parcels, when they were valued, when we value them, the difference between the two is the deferment, and that's that.
Right, right. Because I just was checking, I was wondering, it makes sense. The 3.5 does equal 53 cents per hundred of the 662 million. Got it. Okay, so, because obviously these lands pay some taxes.
Yes.
Is it 10%?
Well,
I guess it depends.
No, it's not a rate.
no.
It's the valuation of the land.
Yeah, this, say, for example, we may have assessment of $100,000 an acre. The use value may be at $400 an acre versus $500 an acre. And so it's, the values would be, that deferment would be the
Gotcha.
difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that it?
Thank you, yes, thank you for your presentation.
I'm sorry, I did have another question I forgot to
Okay.
ask. We talked a lot, I've seen numbers regionally around increases in sales price. How does our increase in the assessment values compare to surrounding locality? Do you know?
Very in proportion. You got to realize, if you've looked at anything with the MLS, the median household out here is a lot higher than it is in Henrico or Hanover. And their increase is close to that. We reassess, we look at sales all the way up through December, as close as we can get, so we can maintain that ratio that we need to have for the state. Whereas other localities cut off at September or maybe June, which can sometimes make that ratio for when the report's really large. So we like to keep ours as close to that. And so our percent might be a little higher than localities around, but we're using data all the way up to the end.
Yeah, I think that's important for our citizens to know, because I think there's this perception that our land is increasing our assessments are increasing much higher than our neighbors, and that's not necessarily the case.
Well, the thing about it is, it's all market value. And when we are looking at assessments or sale prices, we're not comparing our assessments to Henrico or to Hanover. We have market areas. That's why we don't compare the east end of the county to the west end of the county, because they're different market areas. And it's the same way if we're looking across the border. Now, commercial is a different story. When I do properties along Broad Street right next to Henrico, the market does not know any boundaries when it comes to that, okay? But residential, they tend to cluster around the builder, the location, what's available, how big are the lots, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
There we go. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, thanks again. All right, next up, Director of Finance to give us a second quarter general fund projection and some budget amendments. Good afternoon, Ms. Harlock.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Barbara Horlacher, Director of Financial Services, and here to present the second quarter projections, along with some transfer and amendment requests. So in the second quarter projections, and I always give this little reminder that our budget that year that we're in, I call it the COVID budget, because we made a lot of cuts, both to expenses and revenues, not knowing exactly what the effects of the pandemic would be. So if you look at revenues, for instance, since you see $63 million projected revenue by the end of the year, and that's a $5 million ahead of budget. It looks like some really bad budgeting, but actually it is a result of a very conservative budget that we forecasted when we had the COVID pandemic start. But really, our collections are doing really well, and as we pointed out last month, and so we are having very good results in terms of revenues, and in terms of expenses. Spending is moving along well in some departments, and a lot of departments have a lot of savings that they will return. So at this point in the year, I would project a surplus of approximately $7 million. But again, I would remind the board that we then are investing about $6 million in that, either in the CIP or in our other transfer line, which is the transfer to Office of Children's Services. So we have the potential for, at this point, for an increase of about $1 million in fund balance. But again, the potential, there may be, in fact, today we're asking for some more CIP requests, so there'll be some more money spent in transfers. So depending on where that bottom line ends up, that will be our end of the year fund balance. And of course, we know we'll be within our policies, and we will keep our unassigned fund balance. Right now, we say we'll keep it flat. We'll see what happens at the end of the year, where we end the year, and then we'll know more what our percentages are going to be. And we know our debt service is very low right now, so we're only spending about 3% of our general revenue expenditures. So again, we know we'll end the year well within policy. We'll have to make some adjustments to that policy. So the revenue stabilization account, as we talked about in our last meeting, to ramp it up so it's still 3% of next year's budget. But again, final numbers with that will be more towards the end of the year when we wrap things up. I'll go on into transfers, and then we can, amendments, and then we can talk about, and then we can answer questions on everything. So the budget transfers for general fund, we have that account called Reserve for Contingencies that we fund. We made it extra large last year at about $400,000 because we knew this year would be unusual. So this would not be an overall change in the budget or an overall increase in revenues. It would just be moving it from one category to another. And the 40,000 convenience center increase is contracted hauling, and basically that's just increased usage of our convenience centers, and that will be programmed into next year's budget. 36,000 in general services requested, and that is for ongoing COVID expenses that we no longer have CARES Act funds to cover, cleaning the building, extra deep cleaning, things like that. Grounds management, 20,000, that's also for contracted services to fill in for some employees that we've lost due to quarantine and things like that. Workers' compensation audit came in 30,000 above what we had paid in last year, primarily due to growing payroll and higher rates for public safety. And then a 50,000 request for county administration for transcription software. That's the cost of starting up, so startup costs and 1 year maintenance. This will also provide that software as well for the schools and enable them to do closed captioning. And then next year, we will split the costs with the schools, and they will pay their portion, which will include the closed captioning for them. And we'll just pay for our maintenance, 1 year maintenance. But that is a total of $50,000 for those. And again, like I said, that will come from reserve for contingencies. We started with a balance of about $371,000 in there, and this will still leave a balance in there of about $195,000, should we need it for later in the year. I mentioned we would like to do some CIP projects, and we do have funds in the assigned fund balance in the general fund. And these are projects either to complete things or kind of move them up a little bit in the CIP so we don't have to think about them for next year's CIP. So $150,000 to complete the Gateway Sign project, $125,000 to completely replace the sports complex flooring, $70,000 for parking lot improvements at Hidden Rock and other locations, $100,000 to upgrade security features, various places in the county, and $50,000 for roof maintenance at the Gooch Business Center. And those are the requests for amendments, money that has not been appropriated yet. So now I will take questions on the whole second quarter, as well as the transfers and amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Warlocker. Any questions on the presentation on the projections or the action item before us?
Mr. Urlacher, did you want to comment on the action that was taken at the Finance Committee?
And I was just saying, I should say that, but I didn't know if you were going to say it. I should say that we went over these in the Audit and Finance Committee, and they did recommend that the full board approve these transfers and amendments.
Thank you. Anything else? I have, and you, thank you for a thorough presentation. The one question I had, I think you covered it when you told us what we started out with contingencies and what we're down to, but I didn't catch that number. What are we going to be down to remaining?
$195,000.
195. And the sports complex, which location is that for the floor replacement?
Right across the way.
Behind us?
Yes.
All right. And the annual cost for the, the annual cost for the transcription software is projected to be what? Going forward, I know we paid for a year.
I
but-
believe on the county side, it's going to be 21 or 22,000 is the annual cost once we get past the first year.
And schools will share
And yes,
separate from that, or?
the schools is separate from that.
Okay. All right, well, board, we have an action item to appropriate all those monies from contingencies and from, in the CIP side, from assigned fund balance. So I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Goochland County Board of Supervisors approve the amendments and transfers to the Goochland County fiscal year 2021 budget in the total amount of $495,000 for the identified projects and amounts.
Mr. Sharp,
Second.
Mr. Peterson. It's been moved and seconded to appropriate as requested. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, is that approve and appropriate?
It is to appropriate.
Because the motion was to approve.
Well,
Mr. Chair, if Mr. Sharp, did you want to clarify? I mean,
It's both, right?
Thank you. That's good. That was to move, to approve and appropriate amendments and transfers.
Thank you.
And if I may, members of the
And
board,
amend
your
the budget.
appropriation is a roll call vote.
thank you, that's right.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you.
So we'll back up. We have an amended motion, and Mr. Peters accepted the friendly amendment to add the word appropriate.
yes, as I understand the motion, it's to approve the transfers and approve the budget amendments and approve the proposed appropriations.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. So with that motion before us, Any discussion? Mr. Young, if we could have a roll call vote for that.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Sharp,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Yes.
Supervisor Spoonhour,
Yes.
Supervisor Laskellette,
Yes.
Chair Lumpkins.
Yes. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. McGee, for getting us straight, getting me straight on that. We are now to appointments. Item 4 under new business. And there are, page 86 of our packet, there's a Community Policy and Management Team appointment of Ann Casey, effective yesterday for a 2-year term, ending in 2023. It's her first term. And for the BZA, Carol Cook, effective yesterday, as a member alternate for a 5-year term. Is there any discussion and a motion on this last item?
Mr. Chairman, I move that Goochland County Board of Supervisors approves the appointments as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. And this can be voice vote? Ms. Yeah. Thank you. All right, any discussion on the motion before us? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That takes us to a last item on a new business, and it's moving to a closed meeting. Would a board member like to make the motion to go into the closed meeting?
Mr. Chairman, in accordance with the provision of Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, I move that the Goochland County Board of Supervisors convene in a closed meeting for the purpose of reviewing and discussing performance and compensation of county employees.
Second.
Thank you. All right, roll call. Mr. Young, please.
Supervisor Peterson,
Yes.
Supervisor Sharp,
Yes.
Supervisor Laskellette,
Yes.
Supervisor Spoonhour,
Yes.
Chair Lumpkins.
Yes. Okay, we have, now we'll move to a closed meeting. Thank everyone for the presentations and the work for our afternoon session. We will be back after the closed meeting, and then, of course, back for the evening session at 6 p.m. Please.
Are you ready to go?
Want me to read it? Pursuant to code, Virginia Code 2.2-3712D, I move that the Goochland County Board of Supervisors hereby certify that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Goochland County Board of Supervisors in the closed meeting.
Second.
Thank you for that, Mr. Sharp. Mr. Young, if we could do a roll call on that certification?
Supervisor Laskellette,
Yes.
Supervisor Spoonhour,
Yes.
Supervisor Sharp,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Yes.
Chair Lumpkins.
Yes. Okay, we are out of closed session. We'll be back here, gather back here in time to start back at 6 o'clock. Good evening. We'll get started with the 6 o'clock session for February 2nd, 2021 of the Goochland County Board of Supervisors. We will start with the citizen comment period, and for those online, if anybody's online, we'll start with anybody here in the room that wants to speak, but please raise your hand if you want to speak online, and we'll call you in a moment. But is there anybody here in the room that wishes to come forward and speak to any matter concerning Goochland County? If so, please come forward, identify yourself, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Come on up and. That's fine. If you don't mind, there's a button on the microphone there that we want to just turn that on so we can hear you. And so please introduce yourself and.
My name is Pat Pearsall. I am the new HOA president for the Village Hill neighborhood. And I was looking to find out how we would be able to put speed bumps in our neighborhood. Is this the right forum for that or no?
We can, Village Hill, right down the street here?
Yes.
Okay, I'm your representative. I'll be glad to talk to you. If you will make sure that Ms. Piskewitz gets your contact information. It's going to be a VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation. No, I think their roads have been accepted, and they were private for a while, but I believe your roads, did the VDOT snowplows come through on the
Yes,
snow?
VDOT does do the maintenance on our roads.
Okay.
But I had called them
Yeah.
about the speed bumps, and they told me that I would have to come to the Board of Supervisors, which is why I'm here.
Please give your name, and you're in my district. I will be glad to follow up with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Pearsall. Yep. Anybody else?
The light is still green. Jonathan Lau, 1521 Mannequin Road. Today is Groundhog's Day, so I think I'm supposed to repeat my remarks from 2 o'clock. But I do want to say again, thank you to VDOT. I think they did a fine job getting the snow off. But I also want to say thanks to you guys, because I did get to attend the CIP meeting last week and appreciate the efforts and the attention you guys are placing on the budget. And today's Finance Committee meeting, and I also appreciate the attention and the effort you're putting on the budget. And I also appreciate what Ms. Horlocker is doing with what she calls the COVID budget and the real budget and the revised budget. And this is a compliment, I hope. I really do listen, and I try to take some of the templates and the phraseology you folks use back to the Monacan Soil and Water Conservation District and apply that to some of our budgeting and financing. Because I think, personally, you're doing good work. I do want to make one comment on the appraisal information that was shared at 2 o'clock. And that is, I really would encourage you to have a mindset that land use is actually the proper assessment of the ag property in the district. It's not an undervaluing or a decreasing. The commercial development and the residential development is what enhances or increases the value, or I should say the appraisal of the property. And as I'm fond of saying, cows don't call 911. Agricultural land has a lower demand on services and infrastructure, and so that $495 an acre assessment or taxation rate is actually proper for ag property. It's when you put people and businesses on the property that you see the increase in services that needs to be paid for. So that's just a mindset. I know we probably by state statute have to consider it a decrease in the tax rate, but if we would, my encouragement is that you folks would look at that as the correct assessment for ag land and not being a decrease or foregone revenue. And the light flashed. So thanks very much. Happy Groundhog's Day. I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle. Anybody else in the room? And Mr. Buzzard, is anybody online?
We have two people online, but nobody has their hand raised this time.
Okay. Give it another second or two, and we'll close it out. Okay, moving right along to the public hearings. Now, earlier this afternoon, we rearranged this, and we put number 3 as number 1. So, Ms. Mullen, you'll be up in just a second. But public hearing on countywide ordinance repealing Goochland County Code Section 9-11 and adopting some new sections is before us. And the board, we've talked in the last weeks about maybe deferring this item. The chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we defer looking at the ordinance repealing Goochland County Ordinance Section 911 until our September meeting.
A motion to defer this item to our September regular board meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. This can be done on a voice vote, Ms. McGee. So all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, abstentions? All right, thank you. That's deferred. So now we move to item 2 on the public hearing, countywide ordinance amendment. And yeah, that's right, we have this first. So Ms. Hunter is going to be presenting this ZOA 2020-003 ordinance amendment.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Young, Joanne Hunter with Director of Community Development. As you had indicated, this is a zoning ordinance amendment. It was actually initiated by Cox Property LLC, and it's regarding making some changes to the M1 and the M2 zoning districts. The purpose of the amendment is to allow for car washes with a CUP in the M1 and the M2 districts, and also to make a modification to allow auto repair sales and service by right in the M2 district. While this is specifically for the Cox Property LLC, if it was approved, it would be a countywide ordinance and it would apply to any M1 and M2 properties. So currently, car washes are permitted in the B1 and B3 districts with a CUP. It is not referenced in the industrial districts. And then the other change is the M2 district does allow for the sale and service of trailers, heavy equipment sales, things like that, but does not address automobiles. And we would be adding this by right. So with this ordinance amendment, there is a proposed use for Tommy's Car Wash that would like this added with the CUP. And then also there is a proposed Valvoline that is also considering locating in Goochland, and they would like to add the auto sales and repair by right in the M2 district. So this is the chart showing the M1 district. So you can see underlined there, we would be adding car wash with a CUP. And then this is the M2 district. Again, the car wash added with a CUP. And then you can see the bottom box. You have sales, service, or rental of trucks, trailers, tractors, machinery, heavy equipment, and tools in accordance with some design standards. So we would be adding the term automobiles in there, and those would be permitted by right in the M2 district. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. Board members, any questions at this point in the public hearing of Ms. Hunter? Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll open this. This is public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak to the board on this item, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Jennifer Mullen with Roth Jackson here on behalf of Cox Property. Ms. Hunter walked through the ordinance amendment changes very well. This, in addition to allowing the uses that are permitted with the CUP and the lesser intense B1 and B3 districts, it also would then allow for the uses that the CUP that we'll be discussing later on this evening. Be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll just roll through the public, let the public speak. All right, doesn't look like anybody's in the room. Mr. President, anybody online?
I don't see anyone with hand raised.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll close the public hearing. And board members, this ordinance is now before us for any discussion, and the applicant, of course, Ms. Hunter can come back up, and the applicant, or I guess this is an ordinance change that was requested by Cox Properties, and they're willing to field any questions. So are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Hunter, could you approach? Are you aware of any concerns that may have been raised at the Planning Commission, and do you know what the vote was?
The vote for the ordinance amendment was 5-0, and nobody spoke at the public hearing other than Ms. Mullen.
So 5-0 in favor of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just
Forgot that important word.
Just checking.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Page 90.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve countywide ordinance amendment ZOA-2020-00003 to amend section 15-262 to add car washes in M1 industrial limited districts through conditional use permits, and section 15-272 to add car washes by conditional use permits in automobile sale, service, and rental as by right uses in M2 industrial and general districts.
Second.
Thank you both. All right, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Peterson?
Yes.
Supervisor Sharp?
Yes.
Supervisor Lascolette?
Yes.
Supervisor Spoonhour?
Yes.
Chair Lumpkin?
Yes. All right, thank you, Ms. Hunter.
The next public hearing is a conditional use permit, CU 2020-015, also by Cox Property LLC. This would be requesting a car wash in the M2 district with the CUP, which, with the ordinance amendment that just passed it allows them to request this. The property is located at Broad Street and Little Tuckahoe Court. It's in the, right near the county boundary in the eastern portion of the county. It's also located in the Centerville overlay district. So this is the property here. It's circled. It's a larger piece of property. It's the old SB Cox property. The recently constructed Audi dealership is just to the west, and the West Creek Industrial Park is across the street. This property is zoned M2. West Creek across the street is zoned M1, and then there's some surrounding B1 commercial properties in the area, and the property to the north is zoned agricultural. So it is a much larger piece, but this is the area that they're looking for the courthouse, for the car wash. So the Wawa is immediately adjacent on the other side of Little Tuckahoe Court, and they'd be looking at locating the car wash here at that intersection. It is a 1.4 acre site. It's part of the 13.2 acre parcel, which was previously known as the Cox property. The car wash site features a large gravel area that was used for SB Cox for their landscape supply business. Here's a conceptual plan of what the car wash would look like. There's no access from Broad Street. Access would be off Little Tuckahoe Court. So this is the access into Wawa. It'd be a further back. There'd be an entrance here. This would be the bays. It's a triple bay going lane going towards the car wash, goes to a single lane through the car wash, and then to the right of the building, you see these V areas. Those would be the vacuum stations, and not part of this CUP, but also consideration as part of the ordinance amendment was for automobile repair. The applicant did show how the valve line site could be located to the west, to the east of this property. It would be a one-story, 5,200 square foot automatic car wash. The franchise would be Tommy's Express Car Wash. They have one other location in the region that's located on Forest Hill Avenue. They will employ about 12 to 15 employees, and they anticipate servicing about 500 vehicles per day. This is what the elevations would look like. It is in the Centerville Village Design Overlay District, so a certificate of approval will be required. And some of the things that will need to be reviewed is the bay doors facing Broad Street. We've already talked to them about landscaping, and they have shown some substantial landscaping along Broad Street to screen those bay doors. The zoning ordinance amendment was approved, so this case can be considered. At the community meeting, which was held on November 30th, board members, Mr. Sharp, planning commission members, Myers and Patuck, and 3 citizens attended the meeting. There were questions about water usage and the location of the vacuum areas. The citizens that were there did express support for the request. And at the planning commission meeting, it was recommended for approval with a 5-0 vote, and no one spoke at the public hearing. I'll review the proposed conditions. Number 1 is the use. It would be establishing the CUP use for the car wash. Number 2 is they would have to obtain a plan of development. Number 3, the conceptual plan will be generally conform to what's shown to you tonight in the presentation. The number 4, the automotive cleaning shall be conducted within the building or an area shown on the POD, and that the outdoor cleaning areas would need to be screened from Broad Street Road. And then it gives some information of whether they can use existing vegetation or new plantings, and that they would need to maintain those if they die or destroy. No outside storage of automobile parts or products can be on site. There is a condition in there that they wouldn't be able to have any attention-getting devices, such as banners, pennants, flags, balloons, those sorts of things. And then our standard transfer release for that are on all CUP conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and this may be a combination question, but with there being so much additional property to the rear and what would, I guess, be the northwest, could that be developed, or is that, what are the ramifications of future growth with this?
So we've actually been working with the applicant, and I'm trying to find a map that would show it the best. So there is, our comprehensive plan shows, this is 3 Chop, again, the potential for this going under 3 Chop Road, and then a road coming along the rear of this property and connecting here at the traffic light. So 4 Rings Drive, there's now a signalized intersection that would connect to the extension of 3 Chop. It would run along the rear of the property and come back to Little Tuckahoe Court. The applicant has provided us a map showing, thank you. The applicant has shown us a map of how the future property could develop. So it would open these properties up for future economic development, and it would also serve those properties. So that road would be constructed as development is built back there.
And will that parcel now fall under the M1?
The property is zoned
The whole-
M2.
I'm sorry,
and
M2.
M2, so the entire Cox property, which is the 13 acres, is all zoned M2. The car wash site is 1.4 acres, but it would be still zoned M2.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Okay, thank you, Ms. Hunter. One of the notations here is reviewed by county agency departments, and there was a concern, or at least a comment, about traffic concerns. And I'm wondering if you would show me the flow, if you would turn in off of Broad Street at the light while was on the west, this would be on your, with the east side of that road, you turn in. Could you show me the flow of traffic? I'm going to get my car washed.
So Broad Street is located here.
Right.
This is a signalized intersection going into West Creek to the south. There would be no access along Broad for either one of these properties. Again, only this one is subject to the CUP. So you would come in off a Little Page. This is the entrance to Wawa.
Right.
It's a little close to to Broad Street. We probably would not have approved that today. So they pulled their entrance as far back as they could. So you would come in this way. You would get in line for the bays if you were going through the car wash, go through the bays, get your vacuuming done, and then you'd go back out to Little Page,
Now, that's the part right there.
right here.
So you have, no, when you finish, you come out here, and then you have to do a U-turn around.
So when you come out of getting your car washed, you can either come out and go back out to Little Page, or if you're going to get vacuumed, you would come into this area, pull your car into one of these locations which has the hoses, then you would back out and go back out that way.
So that's two-way traffic there.
Yes. Mhm.
So that's
It would have to be
self-serve.
24 feet wide. to
That's
be two-way
self-serve.
traffic. Mhm.
Okay. And the other issue is, a fire rescue needed to look at the fire rescue access around the buildings. That been done?
That will be done through the POD. They'll check all the hose lay requirements when they have the exact dimensions of the building and things like that. So yes, that is part of the POD review.
Okay. I had one other question, but I'll pass for right now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Joanne, just to confirm, this is in the Tucker Creek Service District?
Yes, sir.
And this may be more of a technical question. Do you know if they recycle the water or whether?
They do. They are actually a very green, efficient company, and they went into detail and explained that at the Planning Commission, so I'm sure they'd be happy to explain that process. Again, they could probably do a better, I could do a C-plus job, they can do an A-plus job.
I think you already answered the question of yes. It is
Yeah,
recycled.
Yes, it is recycled.
Thank you.
One other question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. Typically, on a CUP, we will have days and hours of operation. I know they put it on their application, but why is that not part of the CUP?
We usually
Conditions?
do that, yeah, we usually do it when there is residential in the area.
Right.
And because there's no residential
Gotcha.
in the area, we did not, they did indicate their hours, and they are,
Right, I saw them, yeah.
7 a.m. to 8 p.m. is
Okay.
what they're proposing.
Okay, gotcha, thank
And
you.
the Wawa next door is 24?
24 hours,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, okay, just asking. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about the conditional use permit process, because you can fix it, set it to meet the requirements
condition,
of the
right.
site.
Okey-doke.
Okay. Thank you very much. The applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, I'm Jennifer Mullen with Roth Jackson here on behalf of Cox Property, the owner of this property. And as was very well articulated by Ms. Hunter, this property has been aggregated over the last several years by Larry Page all the way to 288. And so that is part of the comprehensive commercial development that we've been before you a few times on, and appreciate your time this evening. Also with me tonight is Rob Worrell, who is the franchisee of this Tommy's Express. So if you have specific franchise questions, he is here to answer those as well. This is, as was noted, a conditional use permit only for this particular property. See if I can use my right pointer. All right, I'm doing better today. So this particular property, as was noted before, there is development plans. We're working through those. We do want to develop the property as we go work our way back. This is step one, again, in that commercial development process, as you've seen to the west towards 288 with the development of the Richmond Audi, and we'll have more development coming online there as well. It is within the overlay district, so we will be going to the design review committee for certificate of approval as our next step. And that will really help shape the visual of this development. You can see on the general site plan here that you have a significant amount of landscaping, both internally as well as along the Broad Street frontage here. And so we'll continue to work with that landscaping during the COA process itself. This is environmentally friendly. I'm glad you brought that up. They do have a water reclamation facility within the building, and so this recycles water through the process, and it ends up having about 60% less water used than your normal washing your car at home. In addition, they have LED lighting. They have a clear ceiling on the facility so that they're able to use the daylight when that is available instead of using additional lighting there. They also have an immaculate facility. If you've been to the one on Forest Hill, you'll see that it is very well kept. It's clean. It has professional operations. They invest back into their employees. They have a program with the community college, and they provide tuition assistance so that people can continue to move up within the organization as well as continue their education. We think this would be a great opportunity, not only for economic development for the county, but also another opportunity to help maintain your cars in an efficient and clean manner. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but respectfully request your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
No,
Questions?
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will open the public hearing on this conditional use permit application.
Jonathan Lau, 1521 Mannequin Road. This is a little off script. I am disappointed there aren't more citizens that come to these meetings. No, I am, seriously, because I think this is where the rubber hits the road. So I do know we have 4 deputies here, so I'll behave myself. In general, I think I'm in favor. I know I'm in favor of it. The water quality issue was already addressed, and of course, as one of the conservation directors, that's always of interest to us. I am curious whether or not the applicant would be willing to make one proffer, and that is to keep the Cox cement truck Christmas display. I've come to realize we are going to lose the Field Day of the Past, Flying Santa, and the Cox cement truck Christmas display in 1 year. My kids are in their 20s, but they still look forward to seeing that. And I'm not sure if we can get that proffer or not. I know they have to be voluntary. But I do think that this would be a great addition to the county. I did note that the Residence Inn has made a special rate discount available to Goochland residents. I don't know if that would be an additional proffer that the applicant would be willing to make or not, but I think by and large it's basically a nice addition to the county, so thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lyle. Anybody online?
No one with their hand raised, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. All right, if there's no other speakers, we'll close this public hearing. And any discussion, board?
Chair, just one real quick. Do we have an idea of how many jobs this might create for Goochland residents?
14, I think it said.
12
They
to
employ
14?
12 to 15, and so
Okay.
that includes higher pay for the hourly workers, but then also 2 managerial positions.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything? The gentleman, franchisee person came out, so maybe you came out here, might as well come on up and say hello. And I don't know if Ms. Mullen could answer this question, but obviously this is not part of your application, but you're really impressed with what you're doing in terms of supporting this, the college support for taking classes at the community college, et cetera. I was just kind of curious, just to educate myself a little bit, is that, because she said you were a franchisee, is that a franchisor type thing that's part of the contract? I mean, I know it's not part of this application.
Right, it's not part of I'm Rob Worrell, one of the owners of the Tommy Express. We have the development rights within kind of the Richmond MSA market.
Okay.
And this site we're very excited about. Appreciate your all's time and consideration. To answer your question about the partnership that we have with J. Sargent Reynolds, it's one that we just, as our ownership group, we wanted to invest in people that wanted to invest in themselves and further their education. And so we reached out to J. Sargent Reynolds and asked them if they had a program where, you know, they could help send us folks, and we'd have a tuition reimbursement program where if somebody worked for us for 6 months, we'd pay them $1,500, which is a substantial amount of tuition towards their tuition dollars for a semester. And we just decided to do that because we wanted to give back to the community. Other things we've done at our Forest Hill location, in 2020, we gave around $50,000 worth of car washes for first responders. And we also gave about $44,000 to medical personnel, free car washes. So we're certainly invested in the community. We hope that this will create, jobs for several folks, and we see it as a good partnership with Goochland County.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. Any questions?
No, thanks.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
I'm ready.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you ready for a motion, or?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the conditional use permit CU-2020-00015 for a car wash at 1515 Little Tuckahoe Court, subject to the imposed conditions as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing any roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Laskellette,
Yes.
Supervisor Spoonhour,
Yes.
Supervisor Sharp,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Yes.
Chair Lumpkins.
Yes. All right. I think that, yes, thank you both. Welcome.
Maybe if they do good, they'll bring one further west.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. If there's no other business to come before us this evening, we will adjourn to our budget session on February 16th at 2 p.m. I believe that's going to be in this building, or in this location. Is that correct? 2 p.m. budget session on the 16th here?
That's correct.
Okay. And then Tuesday, following week, it looks like another 2 p.m. budget session. So we're heading into budget, digging into the budget time. So these are all open to the public. Everybody's invited. And I guess we'll be having them online as well. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lau, for encouraging people to stay engaged. And we're getting to a very important part of the year with lots of decisions. Until then, we stand adjourned. Thank everybody.